being a human being is very complex. Maybe on the virtue that we are human beings, we understand it. We understand how complex it is in ways that we can never figure out how complex it would be to be a fly. So on sentience alone, it's very hard to have this conversation.
I basically reject any of these black and white approaches to these issues. These issues are just significantly more complicated than most sort of dogmatists want to accept. And I want to really figure out the gray area.
Ethical statements can be made somewhat understandable by the layman, but if in order to argue for veganism, if I need to be like a Hegelian, it seems like veganism is pretty at that point.
How is the average person supposed to know if this is ethically okay? Like, I don't have time to get a PhD in moral philosophy or like a master's in neuroscience just so I can understand all the nuances of veganism. Now, this is gonna seem like a tangent, but I'm gonna talk about rock, paper, scissors for a minute, so just hang with me. Imagine you're teaching someone how to play rock, paper, scissors, and you say, rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, paper beats rock. Simple, right? Now imagine you instead explained it like this. So you can start by throwing rock, but throwing rock is what most people do in the first round. So it's smarter to throw paper because in this game, paper beats rock. But you want to be mindful of your opponent's subtle physical tells, like clenching their hand, which can indicate that they're planning on throwing a rock. But if they know you know the rock rule, then you want to plan for that and assume they're going to throw paper. And so you should throw scissors, which I haven't mentioned yet, but it beats paper, unless they know that you know that. Still sound simple? Well, this isn't just hypothetical. There are professional rock, paper, scissor tournaments, and articles online reference things like Nash equilibriums and cite actual scientific papers. But why am I telling you about this? Because even something as simple as rock, paper, scissors can be complicated if you take a microscope to it. But you don't need to understand complex math or be a body language expert to simply understand and play the game. Calling rock, paper, scissors complicated is ridiculous. In the same way, the moral complexity of veganism is intelligible to a 5-year-old. Hey Johnny, I've got a little bit of homework for you. Is this worth this? Is this worth this? What about this and this? And so the problem with these discussions is that they implicitly, and sometimes explicitly, frame veganism as some impenetrable academic topic. And there's some evidence to suggest this perceived complexity favors maintenance of the status quo, as in people don't go vegan when the message is complicated. And that's because of fluency bias, a bias where simple, easy to digest messages, that is, ones with high fluency, are more persuasive, sometimes disturbingly so.
Build that wall, build that wall, build that wall.
To cite just one article, though there are more in the description below. Processing fluency is used to predict the effort necessary for a given task. Accordingly, it has an impact on willingness to do a task, like going vegan. More precisely, low processing fluency, that is, difficult messages, serve as an aversive signal and reduce willingness to engage in the given task, like going vegan. Okay, but what do we do? How do we break this spell when a debate bro wants to talk about the subtleties of foundational meta-ethics while munching on Cheetos? Well, refusing to talk about these complexities just makes it seem like we vegans don't know what we're talking about. But if you get bogged down in an esoteric discussion about non-cognitivism, you're going to convince 0 people. So I think we need to address all this complicated stuff, but we also need to step back and give reminders about how ethically simple veganism actually is. In other words, we have to have the conversation itself, but we also have to have the conversation about the conversation, a meta conversation. So we might say something like this when we see that the conversation is about to get complicated. It's a good question, and I want to go deep into it, but I do just want to put a pin in the conversation real quick and remind everyone what we're talking about at bottom. We're basically asking if a burger is worth more than an individual's life. We're asking if the transient taste of sausage is worth putting a pig in a gas chamber. We're asking if melting beaks and removing testicles and slitting throats is worth a Happy Meal. And so one problem with these discussions about meta-ethics is that they can get so academic and abstract that it's easy to lose the plot, which makes it easy for us to say, man, this is all just so complicated, and then continue to do what we've always done. And only then should we actually address the topic at hand. Now, obviously, you don't have to say that word for word. The core aim is to highlight how framing the discussion as complicated discourages behavior change, while simultaneously underscoring veganism's ethical simplicity in the main. Do this, and I think it'll go a long way to deflating the fluency bias and promoting actual behavior change. And if you like this video, let me know in the comments. Also, if you want to see me do some street activism, consider checking out my Patreon in the description, as I'm trying to get additional supplies and equipment so I can make that happen. Thanks for watching.